So this is the beginning of our teaching. I'm going to go into this for about the next 1 hour. We're going to look at what we mean by the Leviathan and what kind of message we get from the Bible and other holy writings, and what is it that the Bible would like us and what God would like us to understand, and what is it that we are supposed to use this ancient knowledge without using it in ignorance, but rather using it with understanding and in a way that we can be able to command the things that we need to command to take place, not only for our own good, but that is very important. We need, first of all, to get established in ourselves. We are in this world in the business of what we call influence. And influence, you need to have a certain standing. You cannot remain hidden and yet have an influence. You cannot remain subjugated to certain systems and have influence. You need to be able to be like Dad speaks about as the elite of the world. He talks about being the salt of the world, being that city on a hill. And that is the things that we need to harness, understand. And when we have risen to that stature, we can use the knowledge we have, because definitely as a family, we do have plenty of knowledge, we have plenty of understanding. We have a lot of teachings, we have a lot of access to the mystical places. But our rising, the moment of our rising, until the moment we come to the place where people will be able to look at us as they looked to Jesus, and they compared Jesus to the other teachers that were teaching them. They say, you are not teaching as the other teachers, but you're teaching as one with authority, as one who has a standing, as one who has command of the things that they are talking about. That is the thing I want us to look at. I want us to look at, first of all, the sayings about what the Leviathan is spoken about in the Bible, and the very most explicit mention. So actually the very first one, that Bible about Leviathan and the behemoth in Ecometia. So Job, and we're going to go into the book of Job, and we're going to read a bit about this. So that means, let me again, I'll have to share my screen again to Job chapter 40. You can open up with me. We'll not read the entirety of it, but it's important that you read it on your own. Read Job chapter 40 and also chapter 41, but we're going to look at just Job chapter 40 at some few relevant sections and read from verse 6 of chapter 40. Let me just share for the rest of us so we can go quickly. I need to get the meeting video. Share the entire screen. That is Job chapter 40 verse 6. Again, the context of this is that God, after the saga of Job and then his friends giving him advice, and then comes a time when when God comes to answer him, and this is the sort of conversation that takes place. And God answered unto Job out of the howit and said, verse 7, gird up thy loins now like a man, I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. Verse 8, wilt thou also disannul my judgment? Wilt thou condemn me, that thou mayest be righteous? Hast thou an arm like God, or canst thou thunder with voice like him? Deck thyself now with majesty and excellency, and array thyself with glory and beauty. Now, if you look to many teachers of the Bible who try to explain what is happening here, or some other people who try to understand actually the mythical beings like we are about to confront, They talk about it in this context that God is now coming to show himself to Job and trying to show Job, you are such an insignificant thing. The very things you dared are not. And in a way, it is true. But actually, if you look at the word that God is speaking, especially what you've read now in this verse 10, God is telling Job, deck thyself with majesty and excellence. Array thyself with glory and beauty. And he's challenging him to take up a position so that he's able to command the things for which he's able to command. And these are the things that if Job has taken command of, he would not be at the mercy of the nature or powers of nature that, just came and destroyed his wealth. That is the very thing, that is the word that God is speaking here. He's not saying that I am the only being capable of doing these things, that I'm the only one who is capable of doing. If you go to verse 15, I'll try to move very quickly. Verse 12, 13, 14, and verse 15. He says something. Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee. So he's saying, look at the Behemoth. The Behemoth is in charge of a certain domain. As you're going to see, this is only, I don't want to come into it now. I'll just broach it later as you go ahead. But it's very, very important that you remember this verse 15. Behold now Behemoth, and it's very, very important to see here, it's not, the Behemoth is not described as the Behemoth. So Behemoth is like a representation of something. It's like the way we speak about, it's a proper noun. It's a proper noun, but it's also a representation to show that this is a force with many facets. If it was like the Behemoth, then we'd know there's only like one of it, but you don't have that article preceding the Behemoth. So behold, Behemoth, which I made with thee, he eateth grass as an ox. He's doing the very things I said, and then goes ahead and he speaks about the majesty of his being. If you remember previously what God was doing from verse 10, thereabouts 8, 9, and 10, he's challenging Job. Can you also be like of a standing that is able to withstand or know the strength and what of his Lord? Now his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the navel of his belly. Now there's a lot more that is said there in in the rest of verse chapter 40 about the Behemoth, but I don't want us to go into that because we don't have much time for that. So I want us to go to chapter 41 now. Let's see, and basically from verse 1 actually here. I don't know whether okay, chapter 41 and verse 1. Canst thou draw out Leviathan? Again, it's very, very important that we look at these. The Leviathan is not referred to with an article there, or a Leviathan, or the Leviathan, but it says Leviathan, like a force of nature, with a hook. Very, very important that we speak about the presence of Leviathan. The terms that are being used is of a being that inhabits watery environments, because you don't draw out a large dwelling animal with a hook, or his tongue out with a cord which thou lettest down. Actually, the challenge that Job is also getting, again, God is continuing with the very same kind of challenge. First of all, he challenged Job on the nature of his being. Can you bedeck yourself as a man? Can you come out in your glory? And then you'll be worthy of the things that you are attempting. And again, it continues with the very same. Will he make supplications unto thee? Will he speak soft words unto thee? Is there a possibility that is done with Leviathan? Will he make a covenant with thee without taking for a servant forever? He goes on, without play with him as with a bird, or without bite him for thy maidens. Shall the companions make a banquet of him? Shall they part him among the merchants? Hast thou feared his skin with barbed irons, or his head with fish spears? It's about, are you able to exert your dominion on this being called the Leviathan? Lay thine heart upon him, remember the battle, do no more. Again, this is very much at being addressed to what as challenges is something that you could be able to do, but you haven't done to demand or to stand in the stature that you are able to. Behold, the hope of him is in vain. Shall not one be cast down even at the sight of him? None is so fierce that dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand before me? Who hath prevented me that I should repay him? Whatsoever is under the whole heaven is mine. I will not conceal his parts, nor his power, nor his comely proportion. And by the way, if you go back to the previous verse, you see God declaring that all under the sun, under the heaven is his. But you do know, if you remember the account of creation, is that everything under the sun was given to the realm of man. But man was not to get to this point of dominion by his own. He was given subdue. You'll need to subdue these things. You need to subdue the ground. And if you have to subdue the ground, that means also the beings that rule over the marine and watery environments, you still need to subdue them. And who can discover the face of his garment, or who can come to him with his double bridle? And goes on, who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible round about. His scales are his pride, shut up together as with a closed seal. Yeah, there's actually a lot that is being said that is said about this, especially with a verse that we'll not go into tonight, but there's some certain reference that the prophet Isaiah speaks about the Leviathan, and speaks about him being the what of the proud. So there's pride, and he can be proud because of his power and his indomitability, as it seems. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. See just how they are joined one to another, they stick together, that they cannot be sundered. But by his sneezings a light doth shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. I want to stop what there, but I do want you to go on and read a lot more about the Leviathan and the Behemoth as well, although we are going to be going into these, as I've said. This is just like an introductory, a teaser into you to understanding what it is that the Bible and other ancient writings have to say a lot, because there's a lot that has to be said about it, and we are going even to compare it with what other cultures have come to understand. But if you look at those words up to this point, we've learned something about the nature of his being, and about the nature of what is it that God was speaking to Job and trying to draw out of him, and trying to compel him to rise up to something. So God, we've seen, at first he makes a challenge. He makes three sorts of challenges to Job. He does address him in variety of many things. And actually, if you look at the challenge that God is speaking to Job about, he's talking about him unraveling the parts of nature. He even asked him, have you gone to some wild beings? Have you counted the days of their with the labor that they go through before they give birth? Have you managed to understand the cycles of the sun and of the moon, and the cycles of the rain, how rain comes? It is that kind of challenge that Job was being taught to rise up to this. And once you rise up to this, you'll not need to be at the mercy of the elements. You'll not be in need of the mercies of principalities and powers like the age of darkness, who comes and is able to lay waste to all your wealth and all your progeny, and he's able to bring you down with a malady that is so egregious. So the nature of the confrontation, if you would call it so, that takes place between Job and God is a challenge being cast out to him. Is a challenge being given to man. Are you able to rise to the stature that I created you to be? I created you to be Lord of all. I created you to be able to have dominion, not only over creation, but to have dominion over the powers of nature, over the force that is revealed in the elements and the nature cycles like climatic cycles. And then when you have power over these, you reason up to the glory to which I made you to be. There would be no other reason why God was telling Job in chapter 40, verse 10, guard thyself in thy glory. Because, of course, he was not in that glory. You've not risen to that glory. And when you have not risen to that glory, when you have not attained to the stature that for which I made you to have, then you lack all the standing and all the let's say the authority and all the capability for which you're able to ask the questions you're asking. You're able to make the challenges that you are making. It is not as has been expressed before. It's not God drawing the line and saying, there are certain things you're not able to do, so let me do. Because basically, it's not God actually who had laid waste to Job's wealth and his family. It is actually the destroyer. It was actually the age of destruction who had been given over to do that. And Job was helpless. Why was he helpless? It's because he had not risen up to the stature and the place for which he had been created to live up to. There's always this one of the theological contentions is about where historically we can put the story of Job, and actually even his like let's say his ethnicity. Was he clearly was he clearly, because clearly if you see even from the very beginning of the book that speaks about Job, you see we speak about him living, the Bible speaks about him living, I think, in the land of Uz. I usually confuse Uz and Ur. But Uz is not a place in Palestine or the land of Canaan that God gave to his people, at least not in the descriptions of where we know God's holy people dwelt in modern day Israel. And by the best kind of evidence, it's said to be somewhere maybe in the depths of Arabia. It's going to be a lot more easterly, to the east of where the present day the nation of Israel is. But whatever the case, it seems and it's certain that Job was not actually one of the chosen sons of God. But you do see that there was still a testimony that God was able to give about him. Job was very good. He was very devotional in his devotions and his trust of God. He was there. But clearly from what we've learned, he had not risen up to the place of command that he could be able to be Lord over all. His wealth was laid to waste like nothing. He was not somebody who was able, he was not able to contend with other forces. His devotion to God, his prayers, and all his what it was, and his blamelessness, was somebody who was a good guy. And where did he live? He didn't live certainly not in the as I've said, it's not in the land of the Holy Land as such as we know it today. But also his place in history is also something that people have speculated and Bible theologians have, and there are quite interpretations. It could be, my understanding is that maybe if he lived a long time, the time of what we call the patriarchs. These are the very first, the generation from about Adam all the way to Abraham. Myself, I'm almost certain. There's some clues in it actually. Because if you look at Job chapter 41, and I'm not going to go into this one I'm going to go into a later time when we are talking about a lot more about our mechanics of our calendar and our zodiac system, because God gives certain hints about the behemoth, because the behemoth is not only a being in the what in the earth, in the lower, I mean, as you say, in the waters of earth, but it's also a being represented in the heavens. And he talks about the behemoth being the first of the ways of God. But today we wanted to talk more about the Leviathan. Then we are talking to more, and actually over the next few weeks we are going to talk more about the Leviathan, because Leviathan is so much important to us at the consciousness at this point in time. So I don't know where I was before I diverged into that, but I wanted to explain and move up to the point where, or to place Job really in historical context. At the very latest, he could be. There's actually even, I think Pastor Kevin, or maybe Pastor Kevin will explain to this for us. He could have been maybe before even Adam, according to a certain understanding. But he could also place him at that time. But certainly he was at that period of time. In the normal way of setting times, the words that are said in Job chapter 41, they are about the behemoth. Actually, chapter 40, the behemoth being the way of the beginning of things. It corresponds with the understanding of times and calendars at the time. It would have placed him right. Actually, the behemoth is a very large being, and therefore for the point for it to cross across the houses where there is the beginning point, it will take almost about 5,000 years. So in a period between about 5,000 years and up until, like, let's say the time the Israelites were being taken to Babylon, certainly we have enough clues to put them there. And this was, as I've said, may not have been a Hebrew person, may not be of a lineage of Abraham, so to speak, or Jacob, but he was somebody who managed to impress God. But even in that impression of God, we still see there's something that we can understand. Now, I want us to go to another verse. I'm going to go to Psalms 74. And so let me just do that. Let me share with this from the screen so we can read together. That it's a praise psalm and speaks about this. The person being addressed here is God. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces, and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. So this is a psalm that is speaking about what, and one of the things we need to be careful here. If you see the first line, it speaks about the breaketh the heads. Notice it's not one head, but it's heads, multiple, of Leviathan in pieces, and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. So if you look at various myths from this time, whether you're talking about the Babylonians, the other day in the house we were watching a movie called that's called the what of the Titans, the Clash of the Titans. And that's a Greek understanding of some of the mythical beings. And there's a mythical being called the Kraken that actually also talks about inhabiting the waters. And in its makeup, very clearly, it's very, very much similar to the very same being that we are seeing here. And what we see is God here is being talked about as breaking those heads. And again, look at that verb, thou breakest the heads of the Leviathan in pieces. The heads of the Leviathan in pieces. This is something that continually happens. And gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. One of the things you're going to see next, you're going to see something about wilderness, and actually even something about understanding of this in nature of what access to God is about. But God does this. This is like something that He does continually. It is talking about people who are inhabiting the wilderness. If you take it together with the challenge that God was throwing to Job, see that God does this. He does that. Why? Because there's something to be gotten for. There's provision inside the Leviathan. The Leviathan, yes, it's a fierce being. Yes, it could tear you to pieces. Yes, it could lay waste to all your wealth if you have not attained, like Job was. But inside it, we do get an understanding that it is a being from which God is able to harness provision for His people. And I'm going to go now to just some other understanding, some other ancient writings. And for this one, if you are a bit unaware, I'm certain many people who are in the KTM circles, we do speak a lot about the book of Enoch, because Enoch and other ancient people of his lineage, they have a lot to say about Leviathan. I want us to just be able to pick something there that we can be able to tie to what we have learned from that portion in the book of Psalms, and what we also learned from the book of Job. So we can tie it in all together and bring up an understanding. We can be able to gain a better understanding of what it is that the Leviathan stands for and what we are able to get. So I'm going to share, let me share my PowerPoint now. This is the book of Enoch, at least the edition that is most, I think, is the most widespread, but it's the one that is interpreted by somebody Lampkin. And we are reading from the book of Enoch is just a compendium of many chapters, and from around, this is the portion that is labeled the book of parables, I think from around chapter 40 something to around 70 something, and includes chapter 60 is labeled clearly. The person who is speaking here is Noah. Noah is like the 10th of the from Enoch. Is a grandson of Enoch, 10th from Adam. Enoch is the 7th. So he is speaking this labeled, and I would be glad if you can lay yourself to the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch is one of the. It was not included in the Bible because the prevailing knowledge at then is that there were no. It was not an inspired book, but it's because this book had been lost for a long time. It was actually in Africa. It was preserved by the Ethiopic Coptic Church up until I think the 19th century. That it was discovered again, it was rediscovered, then it became it was interpreted, and that's when it actually became clear so much that even Christ himself referenced it so much often. And we see also Jude also references Enoch. So I'm not the very first one. It's very important that you read that book, but it does cause some people with certain closed minds about the nature of God and history and his people and what we need to do in this time. It may cause you, it causes certain people to be uncomfortable because of some of the things that are revealed here. But for me, when I read the book of Enoch, I just marvel at the certain revelations that are there, and actually the promises, because it's more about teasing you about some of the things that were supposed to happen and happened, and then it just reveals as much as it teases you about to be able to go on and discover, as you're going to see actually even in this account as you finish it. And I remember what we said about, I think, verse 15 of Job chapter 40. So let's go and read. And when the day, this is verse 6, if you read earlier, you'll see that it is Noah who is speaking about these words. And when the day and the power and the punishment and the judgment come, which the Lord of spirits hath prepared for those who worship not the righteous law, and for those who deny the righteous judgment, and for those who take his name in vain, that day is prepared. It will be a covenant for the elect, but for sinners, an inquisition. When the punishment of a Lord of spirits shall rest on them, it will not come in vain, and they shall slay the children with their mothers, and the children with their fathers. And verse 7 says, and on that day 2 monsters were separated from one another, a female monster named Leviathan, to dwell in the abyss of the ocean and over the fountain of the waters. Again, in compliance with just what we read in Job and also in the book of Psalms. And the male is named Behemoth, who occupied with his breasts a wasted wilderness named Dudain, on the east of the garden where the elect and righteous dwell, where my great-grandfather was taken up, the 7th from Adam, the first whom the Lord of spirits created. This is very, very important about the Behemoth. And let's just understand that what we just go back. We've had that Noah is speaking about actually a judgment that is coming, but he makes it very clear. It's a vision that he's seeing, and this angel is showing him, and he says it's actually going to be terrible for the wicked, but it's going to be for like a day of justification for the righteous. And he's speaking about these beasts that were separated. That is very, very important also. The male one is called Behemoth, and one of the things is was taken up the 7th, and you see, where does the Behemoth live? It's a wilderness. It's called Dudain. We don't see this reference here, so I'm still trying to look it up and see whether I can be able to understand what exactly Dudain is, but it's very described here by Noah. It says where the elect, it's to the east, and it also says where was taken up the 7th from Adam, the first man whom the spirits created, the first man whom the Lord of spirits created is Adam. But it says it is the place where the grandfather of Noah was taken up from. That is where the Enoch so was dwelling in the wilderness. Again, this sort of makes a very striking understanding, or rather a striking connection to what we read when we read from the book of Psalms, and it speaks about people who dwell in the wilderness getting provisions from a slain heads, like there's heads of the heads of this multi-headed dragon is slain and is given to people. But we see again, Enoch was somebody who knew was a potter in the wilderness, which is where he's dealt by Behemoth, and from there is where he managed to access God. So, in opposition to what people think about when you think about these beings like the Behemoth, and think about because Christians, I know they have fought so many wars to kill and to be distance themselves from the Leviathan. And actually, you remember even the very first time that I introduced our calendar, and one of the months we called it a Leviathanian month. It's much like the one that you'll be going to be to be conceived in the next few days within the house Kabel, and that what somebody recalled at it and said, really, this is the Leviathanian calendar you're trying to tell us? I had to tell them to really, first of all, come and listen and be able to gain an understanding of what it is that the Leviathan stands for. Let's finish up with this verse 9. We're going to read verse 9 and 10. And as the other agent showed me the might of those monsters, so here is Noah who is very curious, and how they were separated on one day and thrown, the one in the abyss of the sea and the other to the Earth's desert. But actually I wanted to really even show you another striking resemblance to another account in creation, is that these beings at once were one. So they were one, but then they were separated into one that is masculine and another one is feminine. The only way that we see creation dividing the distinct forces of masculine in creation and the feminine in creation is for productive and for creative activity. It's basically for that. That is why the waters are to be divided, so that they can come together and create and become a place of creation. It is the very same thing that Adam and Eve had to be separated. So they become distinct forces that can then be brought together and in creative enterprise bring about, they go on and continue the work of creation that God had initiated. Because the account of creation, that is why I actually even prefer to refer to the account of creation as origins. Because calling it creation makes it appear that the works of creation has already been done. We have nothing else to do. But actually the work of creation was initiated, then man was meant to go on to do the other work. But now here comes to a very crucial point that you keep seeing again and again throughout the books of Enoch. And he said to me, this is what he was told. And he said to me, Son of man, you wish to know that which is kept secret. I know, or rather, Noah does follow on and makes more inquiries from this angel, and there is a lot that is revealed, but he doesn't actually even reveal the exact nature and the beings and why they were thrown and why they were separated and why one is put inside waters. So now, next time, because I want to stop at this juncture, we're going to dwell more and try to understand what is it that is meant by something that is in the creative facet, and what we need with something, how we can harness that which is in waters, and how do we bring it together with the enterprise of what is on the land or in the skies, and bring them together and be able to understand what is it that the secret, can we be able to unravel the secret that Noah so much wished to get into, to be able to understand the natures of the behemoth, of the Leviathan, and be able to harness these powers for the mandate that we have. We have already the mandate. So there is no excuse. God has given us the mandate. He gave it to Adam, and Adam, although he didn't follow all through, then Christ comes. He comes with somebody who is another one who is like Adam, but comes with the perfection. He's the one who comes, and then he gives us this very striking set of words, and he says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. What is the significance of that power being given through Christ or into Christ? Is that we may be able to go into the whole world, that is the entirety of the world, not just to the human races. Go to the whole world, preach the gospel unto all creation, bring them to a system that is righteous under Christ. That is the very system, that's the very enterprise that we are involved with. And we are going to unravel a lot. We're going to dig deeper into this. But I wanted to stop at this juncture because I know maybe you may have questions, and you can send your question to our chat, or better still, you can just unmute yourself, ask the question, and we'll be able to answer it all. If you don't have a question, you have some other insights into the things that you've talked about, you can also do the same. We'll be able to, we'll listen, or you have a contribution, or you have another way of explaining, or maybe you have a disagreement again. That's allowed as well. You can also unmute, or you can send your text, your message as a text message, and you'll be able to address it. Any one of the things that we have raised, you can address them. Please, I'm going to give you time. Ma'am, actually, I can't actually even be more grateful to what you've enabled us to unravel. When we started these things, we didn't understand much, and actually even Dad said it clearly and told us we are entering through a gateway that we call the gateway of mercy, that we had not merited to be able to do the things that we did, but because we went there and we were bold, things were opened up. And I've said Mom has actually been very crucial, because she usually comes to me with very practical ideas about and questions and probings and even suggestions. And by that, we are able to open up an understanding of how some of these things, you've been able to harness some things, you've been able to speak some things that are very potent to our becoming. And it's only because we understood it, and because Mom Kiki has been very, very crucial to what you've done. And so has been every one of you. Please, let's go on keeping asking questions. Let's continue on probing. There is no question that we are that will be too much out of place in what we are dealing with. Everything that we do, everything that can arise to you is crucial to understanding, is crucial to us uncovering what we need to uncover. And not just uncover, but also institute the very things. When you read actually these books, as I was saying, like even the ancient writings of Enoch and the other patriarchs of our time, you see they were intimating of a rising of a generation, of a rising up of a people with a certain consciousness that will come. And even Enoch himself says it very explicitly and says some of the things that were revealed to me by the angel, they were not for this time, but they were for a generation that is to come. That will come at the point where it will be the fulfillment of all things. That is what actually the phrase the Bible actually speaks about in so many instances. And that is the moment at this time. And it's a generation that has got to rise, become, attain, and have an authority that is not just delegated to them, but it's an authority that they have risen up to. And heaven looks at them and says, whatever these people have to say, we have no option but to cooperate with them and bring about the happenings of what they stand for. So thank you so much. We can have someone else ask this. Somebody, Faith, has asked, what website is that you use to display the stars and planets? I don't know which one you're speaking about. Much of what I was displaying about the motion of the planets, I was using some planetarium software called Stellarium. It's a freeware that you can get from the web. Just search for Stellarium PC. You'll be able to get. I have a version that you can use on your phone. You can talk to me, I'll be able to. But it just shows the motions of the planets. There are some other things that I've used to conceptualize or simplify understanding of the heavens and the sky. And this, I know they are a little bit rudimentary, but what some of the things is what I've used, and what I've just developed them with my little graphic skills, and I am working still on them to produce some more representative things that we can use for understanding and actually even making what our astrological system is not meant just for our own concern. It is something that eventually we have to launch into the world, and we have to launch it in such a way that it becomes unimpeachable. It's something that is able to stand on its own and is able even to subjugate other systems and bring them. That is the very nature of godly creative work, is that you bring everything to subjection. You don't necessarily destroy everything else that is there, that exists, but actually what you just do is bring it to subjection. It's the very same thing actually we are talking about here. We are talking about taming the Leviathan and harnessing it, because there is already a Leviathan also of a nature. There's another nature of the kinds of the system of the world that is already instituted there. How do we do it? How do we bring it to the obedience of Christ? Because Christ said it's not like all authority was destroyed, but all authority, anything that is might, has to go through, have access to the power that they're able to command, but it should be through Christ. Whatever it is, whatever people like, let's say, people of what we consider religions, like, let's say, Muslims, or is it Hindus, is it Buddhism, what is it? They do have access to certain powers, but are we able to bring them in such a way that they are able to access Christ, that they are able to be subjected to Christ? It's the very same thing like we were talking about last week, Daniel being put in charge of Babylonian astrologers and wise people. He was able to subject them because for the cause of his superior knowledge. He could command he could command the station of being the head of all the astrologers. So the astrologers, their meanings of their astrology would only gain full meaning within the system that Daniel was putting in place. So thank you so much. I don't know whether we have some other question or comment. We can still go on interacting. We can go on interacting within the the group within our social media, what especially on WhatsApp. I'll make an effort of being a lot more present there, so that you, if you want to ask me questions, we can initiate discussions there. We do have a place, we do have some other forums that also we can do. We do discuss astrology. If you're there, we can have more. Uh, we can have more questions there. I think that's what we will do, because these days much of astrology, except what we are teaching here, we like people to come up with of their own initiative, come and learn and get to know, because actually we've done a lot. It's not the same way we were. Right now we can, although we did go into this portal through a gateway of mercy. Right now, most of the things that we are doing, we are not doing because of mercy. We are doing it because of attainment, and that in itself is something that is remarkable. And you're going to go on doing that as the years progresses. We are going to attain more, but it will have to come from your initiative. So that is why I mainly work with the people who have reached out to us and they want to accomplish certain things, and we do it together with them. So I don't seem to be seeing anyone. Oh, Dad.
Not simple. Christianity is supposed to have the most complex university such that the highest doctors of the world cannot it needs another dimension of grace to perceive the things that are taught in the Christianity university and such kind of things, because we understand the gospel mainly on the introductive phase, that is speaking in language form, but it needs to get into the complex matrix. We need to understand the gospel in the geometric language, the gospel, like in the way you're speaking about these things. Like even in Romans chapter 1, I think verse 18 there down, it speaks about how the things that are invisible are written through the things that are created and such. And it means the aspects of being able to interpret from the creation and begin to perceive and harness communications that are in deeper dimensions. It's very important. Like this aspect, when you talk about astrology is not something that somebody can escape. Like right now, when you tell a believer about the preparing of the coming of Christ, most believers will be like preparing for the coming of Christ. They do with retreating from a lot of things, then saying more of like observing piety and thinking, but because that they think that will elevate consciousness in terms of them being prepared. But there's almost zero work that's being done in the body of Christ in matter as to what it means to prepare for the coming of Christ. Because the preparation of the coming of Christ, it does not come on an empty house. The preparation of the coming of Christ means you are establishing a political, socio-economic structure that is coming to rule on the resource of those that are prepared for his coming. Like even the Jews did not engage in preparing for the coming of the Messiah by hope. They engage practically in terms of aligning things to be able to be aligned in a way that it is structurally in the heavens, in the natural, and across all layers. And my prayer is that every person may activate themselves from the basic elementary comprehensions of the gospel, because these things will you see how we talk about those deep things, then we are able to demonstrate power in those dimensions. And sometimes it's very hard to tell. So when you're telling a basic believer or nominal believer, you tell them in the basic language that they understand in the church domain. But a person that understands, you understand the matrix behind what is happening. And if you're going to have the victory, even for every person, don't be listening to these things and thinking like, oh, you're not part of these things, because the time will come that it will be upon your personal ability to wield power and to shift matter that in your jurisdiction. It won't be according to your pastor's authority. It won't be according to to whoever leads you. It will be according to your personal ability to utilize the heavenly resource. This is something that we have to begin to enter into. just on a basic level, that to begin to challenge you a bit. Sometimes I remember one of the when we were doing Zoom the other time when I was handling Zoom, I was saying one of the things we tackle, and I was talking about the importance of doubt, and I was speaking about doubt in righteousness, and I was telling you that even God uses doubt in the sense that when you're pressed in a place that now you cannot comprehend what is happening, doubt has to come, because the purpose of doubt is, first of all, to cause you to lose your hold, because you cannot be able to be advanced in any dimension before losing the hold of the dimension you've been in. So aspects of nobody can inject you new knowledge if you're not in a position to be willing to release what has been before. And may God help us as the church, so that I don't know who bewitched us, so that our consciousness is not open to really delve in matters that are in deeper dimensions with God. One of the things is, when you look at the scriptures, right from the beginning, up to the advent of the coming of Christ and such, there's one thing that is standing out. First of all, Jesus, when he comes to the scene, he says, I have many things to tell you, but you cannot really handle now. Secondly, you see from the beginning, it starts, then comes in the fall. And there's a lot of things, even with respect to the fall. You see, the more you develop, the more you develop pressing forward, the more you rediscover the past. Like, for instance, when Moses is writing Genesis, it starts by saying, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. When John is writing the gospel, he's saying, in the beginning was the word. So which one is a greater far beginning between God created the heavens and the earth, or the when he says in the beginning was the word? You see, this is a higher revelation to say in the beginning was the word. It is a greater beginning than in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And you see, all the aspects of the scriptures is the most dominant thing you see is man has already sold his position to Satan, and it is Satan controlling that. And by that alone, I want to say something here that will revolutionize you if you comprehend what it means. It means, by this sense alone, just by the fact that as a believer has authority to rebuke Satan, you realize in the Old Testament, including the prophets, did not have authority to rebuke Satan. Just by the fact that a believer has authority to rebuke Satan, it changes the entire paradigm of consciousness and comprehension in matters that are, for instance, up to today, a believer, people are being warned in terms of, like I say, they are told, do not seek supernatural encounters, all those kind of things. You may open doors to all these kind of things. This kind of instructions are based on ignorance, because as a human being, actually, there's no entity that's you're not permitted to enter into that jurisdiction, be it Satan, be it what. Because even if Satan will manifest in your presence, your free will is so much cushioned in a way that you have a decision to determine your interactions with the spirit. So, and the moment now we utilize it in terms of fear, it means when a spirit operates, fear in itself begins to become a connector. And there's a lot of things that we need to begin to tear down, and to begin to see the fullness of the kingdom of God for what it is, and to begin to have dominion over these matters, because we cannot be able to genuinely say we have overcome when we're in the, I normally put it this way, that there's the prophetic dimension, then there's the manifestational. Then I say many believers are born again prophetically, but manifestationally, many have not yet realized these things. When you tackle these aspects of astrological aspects, it means you're recognizing gateways. It means when you're worshiping God, you are recognizing the things, and you're having the scriptures, like you're opening the scrolls and having everything, discerning it by its strand, so that you may know holiness. So that, and this part also awakens the aspect of when creation is groaning for the manifestation of the sons of God. It means when the sons manifest, it means there shall be holiness and alignments that shall fall across the fabric of creation. And it's important that each and every one of us keep studying these things. Study these things, even if you don't understand, ask the Lord. You have personal encounters that will come. God, the moment you open up to these things, God will begin to release entities. You see an entity appearing to you and say, I'm come from the presence of the Lord, and they will explain to you a particular kind of a facet. I remember we've had encounters that when we went to research, eventually it cuts across all plans. I remember that time when initially when I had this encounter, and then I used to just share like an encounter that you would say, you share like a man of God and such. Then eventually began to enter into those kind of nitty-gritty details of researching the fabric of its embodiment of this entity. But like the encounter that I said, this this angel that was looking like a seahorse, and then this angel looked like a seahorse. Then when I tried to understand what his purpose is, I was told that this angel comes in the ministry of the raising of the dead, but his purpose is not to bring life, but to cure what is called death disease. Eventually, when you're doing those kinds of research, you realize the aspect of the brain, is it called the hypothalamus or what and such. And you see, these same things are mapped also in the heavens in terms of the stars, because as much as you have these houses, in every house there are hundreds and trillions of subjects within the same domain. And the moment you begin to open up now the generality of it, eventually you can begin that are involved. Then eventually it means our worship can begin to become perfected in the presence of God, so that we are not worshiping God out of ignorance, out of sync. Because, for instance, all spiritual manifestation, we normally say Holy Spirit. It means when you do not know an entity and you generalize it and call it Holy Spirit, means you have not been able to be in a place to distinguish embodiments. You're not able to distinguish personalities in the divine and such. It means it is still perverting worship. As much as you may be permitted that point in time to utter that, but in the generality you're perverted that which is holy. So may the Lord give us the ability to understand his design in the heavens, and that when you understand the design in the heavens, it shall give us access to enter the places of rulership and dominion and rights with God. And then we can be able to build up together with God and be able to have conversations with him in a higher plane. These things, I can guarantee you, anybody that is involved in these things, and those who have been involved, you know that your conversations and your encounters are in a different plane. Even for instance, when somebody speaks, when right now in the church, when a prophet comes and in anger speaks about God is judging the world and such kind of things, you see, to me, God cannot tell me something like he's judging the world, because the point where we have reached with God now, that is not something I can begin to hear from God. And then somebody will want to know who is talking to the others. It is still God, but it's still in the domain of the maturity, because right now, you cannot say God in his ultimate purity of heart is judging the world, because his glory is not yet revealed. And when the glory of God is revealed by the people that attach themselves to him and participate with him, then eventually judgment will be justified, because judgment has to be, you have to judge judgment and you have to find it just also. And when there's no God revealed, you cannot claim that the corruption that is in the world and the hearts of men is because of their rebellion, because you cannot measure rebellion until the fullness of God is revealed. For instance, you call somebody like Paul an antichrist, but when he meets Jesus face to face, the same guy, why is he not able to resist Christ? He says, "What can I do, my Lord?" It begins to tell you the dimensions of God. And part of these aspects of astrology will begin to open for us the gateways and the seals and the scrolls to be able to understand the sounds that are in the fabric that control the cosmic forces. And we can begin now to prophesy in that space and begin to awaken another dimensions of conversations in consciousness. There are conversations that are not necessarily by proclamation, but there are conversations that are in consciousness. There are conversations, there's a place of preaching the gospel without uttering a word, yet the impact begins to transform the world and begin to demonstrate the glory of God. And I pray that each person may be encouraged and uplifted and have the strength to delve into these matters, and scrolls may be open to you individually, that you may bring the same thing that's open to you individually to the corporate fellowship, and let the ripple effect keep on expanding and expanding until now what is hidden in obscurity, or the entities behind that have been given authority over these matters, may begin now to come into the domain of appearance. One of these things about astrology, I can tell you, maybe it will encourage you most, is the moment you come to the place of mastery of these realities, it will come to a place where you can be in a fellowship and you can be able to summon angels to appear. So you will not just be talking and testifying and feeling spiritually without your observer seeing, but it comes to a place where you summon these entities and they will have the license through you to appear in the natural, in the eyes of everybody that is in that kind of a sitting. But we have to build up a base so that now this may have legal grounds to bring that evocations of these entities in God. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dad. I think what you just said is of such great significance. It brings very well into context the things you're doing. That there's certainly there's a context to it. There's a context to it in the plan of the ages. There's a context to it in the manifestation of the sons of God, and it's well, I understand where astrology is. It's about every one of us pulling in together, getting to do the things that they are doing in the perfection of their calling, and then when you do that, we become those powers that we were always meant to be, and the ones that we'll be able to have our standing, and we have to be able to justify. We can even go before God. We can even be able, as Dad has talked about, even doing things like summoning angels, uh, being able to make a case for ourselves that is unanswerable. We can stand before God, and as Dad has said, he's reached even a point where God wouldn't talk to him about that conversation. When you go to a certain point like that, you'll be able to advance the conversation that you have with God. It's about us doing the things that we are doing, and I'm very, very grateful that I have this opportunity and this place and this calling, and I have a congregation like you who are willing to delve with me and go into these things. So I don't know whether we have any other person. You can still unmute and speak. You can still post your question or your comment as you go on. This is a fellowship. It's supposed to be a lot more. You're supposed to be more at ease. You can interrupt even the speaker. It's not like we have on Sundays. You can interrupt at any time, interject, and we'll hear you out. That you can still see my screen. Yep. So we get the point where we do our giving, and if you're paying by M-Pesa, the details are as shown. You use the PayBill number 522522, and then enter our account number. Specific account number for our church account is 1157028 confirm about the details, and ensure that you confirm again that the account number is the correct one. You should get a text confirming to you that your cash has been received in the correct account. Make that, and then you can send that message to us. You can be able to communicate with us. You can communicate with us so that we get an understanding of what is it that you're giving to. We do have various programs. We do have various needs. We do have ways in which you can contribute, not only monetary but in material form. Just reach out to the number on your screen, that is 0791151501. Again, that number is 0791151501, and or you'll be directed on how you can give and what is it you can support, you can offer your support for in our programs. So that's it for that. And again, that number I've given, that number 0791151501, that is our main contact number. You can use it for other communication issues, not just about your giving. You can reach out to for any ministry needs. It's not mom's or dad's number. It's not those are not the numbers that you contact for ministry purposes. Please use that number. We are still talking about the Kingdom Mindset Mombasa. There is Kingdom Mindset 2 Mombasa. I don't know whether James is with us. I don't know whether we still have the meeting in Voi, because you're still not sharing. The last instructions I remember is that we were not to share the what I'm trying to see if James Kahiga is with us. It seems like we don't have him. But you can reach out to him, and certainly reach out to him to ask more whether there is what. But we are coming to this event. I think it's in a couple of days or 3 days away. Continue interceding for it. You can get in touch with James Kahiga. His phone number is given there, at the bottom of the screen, and that poster is shared on our social media. Please share it. Mom, Dad, and Mom and Dad will be ministering alongside Reverend James Kahiga. So continue interceding for them. Reach out to them if there is any form of support, materially or otherwise, that you can give out to. Let's hold this a KTM event, and it's about us again influencing the world for Christ. Finally, we have our social media accounts. Please continue on following us there. Continue sharing the content that we share. The teachings that we have will also be made available, especially on our Telegram channel. This last week we had a hitch with our recording, and therefore we are redoing certain elements of it, so that is why it's not yet ready. But I'm certain on the main today we were able to do the recording properly, and you'll be able to get it. Should be able to get both an audio of this and also a video, because of some of the demonstrations we are doing, so that you can be able to gain as much understanding as you can about the concepts that we are teaching. So God bless you. That brings us to the end of my teaching and our announcements. And what I'm going to do, I do see some comments that have come in right now. For Evelyn is thanking Mom and Dad for those encouragements. She says they were very helpful. Thanks me for being patient with us as you go through the learning and assimilation process. In due time, the beauty of astrology will be conversational lingo and foundation of our wiring and consciousness. We are grateful. Exactly. Thank you so much, Evelyn. It is true that is what we aim for, is that the things that we speak become commonplace. It's about a consciousness that we are working on, and that work is ongoing, and we have done amazingly well, considering other systems that have been doing and practicing astrology for thousands of years. And what we have instituted a system that is barely 2 years long, but already we are seeing it being effective, and it's going to bring even more wondrous things that are going to be revealed in the area even of miracles and wonders and ability to master time and the domain that we are in. Those things are happening. Beatrice Keva says it was an awesome session. I have learned a lot. Thank you, Beatrice. We appreciate your faithfulness and the fact that you've been one of the people who have followed up with everything you've been doing. You've been very steadfast, and we may God grant you the wishes of your heart and bless you in all your goings in and your coming back. General Tito says these teachings are deep and will retain all levels pertaining them. Thank you so much, General. We appreciate you. We are glad for the work you do. It's of enormous blessing to us. God bless you. We can continue still with the interaction. Either, as I've said, at any time you may be able to, as Pastor Kevin says, you can be able to unmute. You can unmute and speak at any point in time you see appropriate, and it will give you the chance to. But what I'm going to do now is give back the meeting back to Pastor Kevin, who started us all on this. Pastor Kevin, you close for us the meeting. You can make any remarks and also give us a final prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you for the presentation, for the time you're taking to just to start out these matters and be able to present it to us, because they're very crucial in where you're going. And every one of us needs to understand that whether you like it or not, as long as you're born a human being, astrology plays a part in what you're doing, whether you're born again or not. As long as you're born a human being, astrology is a foundation that you already stand on, because the day you were born, you're either born on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, to Sunday. By that aspect already, you're already practicing astrology. You're already invoking the astrological domain. When you're going for your meetings, you already schedule it on a particular day. By scheduling on a particular day, you already involve a particular planet by saying, I'm meeting on Wednesday. You've already invoked a particular planet. You've already invoked some elements that are tied to that day because of the people who conjured up that day and put it that way. So it's important that we understand all these things and we're able to learn and know that this is part of the gospel. This is not an add-on. It is part of the gospel. Any culture, if you look at even the ancient cultures, the Babylonian, the Egyptian, the Greek, any culture, it was founded on three things. Astrology was the main one. Then mathematics, and then spirituality. Spirituality, you understand, spirituality comes in as the third, not the first. Astrology was the first, mathematics was the second, then spirituality was the third. Mathematics involved the science, involves music, all that stuff. So there's no way you can escape astrology. So let us keep listen to these things, listen again. You can also have a conversation in the church group. If there's something you don't understand or you want elaboration, feel free to ask in the church group, and we'll be able to just talk about it and fellowship around it. So if you're also blessed by the session, you can also be a blessing to Jack. Feel free to reach out to him and we bless him in whichever way monetarily you'll feel led to. So I'll just close it with a word of prayer and then we'll meet next week. Father, we thank you and we honor you for the things that you are able to open us up to. We thank you for Jack and the portal that he stands in. We thank you for the knowledge, the understanding, and the insight that you're giving unto us and you continually give unto us. And we thank you for all the governmental system that you put in place, the astrological plane, the heavens of the heavens, and all the beings that are in that domain and the mandate that you gave unto them. Father, as we study these things, we open ourselves up, we go beyond the norm, beyond the religious dogma that has been put in place, and we come to stand at the gates of truth, Lord, that from the gates of truth, Lord, you'll be able to unravel all truth, and will bring us into a relationship of an experiential knowledge of all truth, that will be an embodiment of truth, will emerge as the sons of truth in our being. We bless you this day, and I bless everyone within the sound of my voice. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Have a blessed night, everyone. Good night.
Have a blessed and productive week.